Welcome to the Real Escape Investing Podcast. I'm your host, Terrie Shower, and this is a show dedicated to helping you escape the constraints of time, income, and geography with the vehicle of real estate investing. Our show today is all about money. I know you want me to help you make more of it. But before we get to that, I want to share my top secrets of how to think about money so that you can have more of it. Hello, real estate fans, and welcome to today's episode of the Real Escape Investing Podcast, the show that will help you escape the constraints of time, geography, and finance through the vehicle of real estate investing. Now, I have a really interesting topic for you guys today, and it's one that on this project of escape, of liberating yourself from some of the constraints that you might be facing in your life. One of the main constraints that people experience on their escape journey is financial. And so, money is a big topic. It's one of the barriers that keeps people chained to whatever their current reality might be, which would be either a job or a concern about financial security, or some kind of other arrangement that might be creating stress in your life and make you feel imprisoned, something that's preventing you from escaping some of the constraints that might be holding you in place. And what I want to do in today's episode is I really want to talk a little bit about why our relationship to money is such a stumbling block. Why is our conception of money something that is chaining us? And if we're going to succeed as real estate investors, or if we're going to succeed basically in any financial endeavor that we embark on, there's a basic understanding of how money functions and what money is that very often is kind of trapping you at your current level of financial success. So let's talk about money. And what is money? What is financial success? Money is a metric of value that our society, a capitalist society, has established for different kinds of work and knowledge that we have. So when I say a metric of value, it's the amount of money that a certain task is worth, or that a certain activity is worth, or that a certain arrangement is worth, passive income. And one really easy way of thinking about this is look at the different salaries that people are able to command depending on what their role is. So one example I like to give is often, like a football player, right? Like you could have Ronaldo, or you could have the highest paid NFL player. You're going to see my ignorance in different sports, but, be it the NFL, be it ice hockey, be it soccer, or basketball, the star players in those leagues make a ridiculous amount of money. And when you look at, let's say somebody who has a very important role in our society, like a teacher or a nurse or a fireman or a policeman, those people's salaries are a fraction of what those star athletes are making. Now, that's a metric of value that our society has, maybe arbitrarily, we can have a whole argument about that, but that our society has assigned to those particular roles. And so if you are the most talented nurse in the whole nation, you're going to be able to command a certain salary. And if you're the most talented football player in the nation, you're going to be able to command a different salary. So there are this kind of like metric of values that gets then rewarded in certain ways with money. So this is where I find like a lot of people kind of get off track. And I have, a lot of conversations in my daily life about people who are sort of trying to argue with the system, right? And so they'll be like, oh, well, it's not fair. Like ultimately a nurse, what she's doing, it's worth, as much money as a football player. And so as a result, whatever I'm doing, so then people bring it back to their own role, and they might say like, okay, well, whatever role I have, I disagree with the amount of money that society, with the metric of value that society is placing on what I'm doing, and therefore society's not fair, and therefore I'm angry, and therefore I'm not going to take the positive steps, the positive actions that might create different financial results with me. Before we go any further, I would like it if you would just take a few moments to think about, how do you think about money? What's your feeling towards these, metrics about the position that you've been assigned in society in terms of what are the financial rewards of what you're doing? And, that can go all the way from professional football players to lawyers to doctors to real estate brokers who probably have like a pretty high value of their time, all the way down to the lower ends of the scale where perhaps, people are doing super valuable work, but our society has just decided that the financial rewards for that are not going to be very high. And so rather than to get angry about this and be like, society's not fair, whatever you place outside of your own control. So if you're putting the location of control of that equation outside of yourself, it's society's fault versus it's a question of my decision making. Every time you make that decision and you make it somehow out of your control, guess what happens? You lose control of your ability to have any say in the matter. And so if the system is rigged, if society is against you, if something external is preventing you from succeeding, you lose all power to effect change. You lose all power to escape from those constraints because you're not placing them within your control. So I begin with this preamble because before we get into how you can begin to change the equation of value, how you can begin to see different financial results, which is where I want you to get with this, right? Like part of the goal of this podcast is to really help you change some of those equations that are showing up, help you escape some of those financial constraints. And before we can get into the nitty-gritty of that, you need to first evaluate the way in which you're thinking about money and the way in which you're understanding the way our society uses that metric. And I'm not proposing for 1 second that that's an actual reflection of the value of those jobs. If you ask me, I think that the work that nurses do is way more valuable than, an entertainer who's on TV playing soccer. But our society has chosen to assign that value in a specific way. And the extent to which we are angry about it and we, put that, like throw that back and say, well, I'm a victim of that. It to the degree you do that, you're actually losing control of affecting the results. And so please, where I want to start is that there is this assignment of value, this metric that is placed on how we financially reward things, and that the degree to which you understand that system and then become able to game it is the degree to which you're going to begin to see financial change happen in your life. Have you really been listening to the episode, or has your monkey mind been taking you off in one direction or another? Our mental habits can be our biggest assets or our biggest liabilities as we pursue certain goals. For me, the biggest performance gains have always come from training my mind. In my book, Mindful Landlord, I talk about how you can train your mind and how you can apply some of these strategies to your journey in the real estate field. The book is available on Amazon and also on its website, mindfullandlord.com. Now I'll stop evangelizing for the power of mental training and let you get back to the show. Let's get into a little bit more of the nitty-gritty of what this looks like in everyday life. And so the basic of that is, if you want to change your financial situation, you need to understand that the financial rewards are a consequence. The amount of money that you receive are a consequence of the creation of value in this system that we exist in, which sees value in a specific way. So if you begin to see financial rewards as a consequence of creating value, a consequence of being extremely useful to other people, it's going to give you leverage to change the equation and to begin to see better financial results for yourself. And so just to make, I've been super abstract so far, but in order to make this really concrete, we're going to go through 3 very specific scenarios that I've seen happen in the real estate field. So you're going to be able to understand exactly what I'm talking about. So in my coaching business, I have had the opportunity to work with various real estate brokers who are starting out. And one of the really common places that real estate brokers start is people get into that career very often because they know that it can be extremely financially rewarding. And at the beginning, there's a lot of anxiety about, I just need to contact as many people. I need to get visibility. I need to have my face, on a billboard. I need to make as many cold calls as possible. And that by generating all of this churn, by generating all this activity, I'm going to talk to enough people that somebody's going to want to do business with me. And I have not seen that solution work out very well for people. For sure, like the more you hustle and the more people you put yourself in front of, eventually you're going to get better at the sales process, and you might end up having some more clients that way. But you're actually not working on the main thing that's going to turn into a profit, and that is building your knowledge, building your ability to create value for people. And so what does this look like on the ground? Well, if you're a broker, and this is an investing podcast, so let's talk about it from the venue of a broker who wants to work with investors. You need to make yourself so valuable to investors, so valuable to your clients, that it's actually a liability for them to not work with you. And how do you do that? You do that by really learning your profession, by learning the ins and outs of leasing, for example, so that if you're working on a rental transaction, you're going to be able to read leases, interpret leases, understand those contracts in such a profound way that your clients would be silly to make purchasing decisions without talking to you. You can do that by understanding value add, right? So like how when you get to a specific deal, if you're able to propose to your clients to show them this is a good deal because you're going to be able to generate XYZ value in the buy, or you're going to be able to optimize the building in this way. And I can guarantee you that in 2-3 years time, you're going to be able to get this much value out of your building. You know what's going to happen in those 2-3 years time, when that investor is ready to make another decision, they're going to come running to you because they know that if they work with you, you're going to be able to create that value for them, to be of value in the transaction, to help them buy at a profit, to help them optimize well. And that's going to end up being how you build your business. I'll give you another example. If you become so good at doing financial calculations, like if as a process of your accompanying a buyer in his acquisition, an investor in his acquisition process, and you're so good at building that financial model that's going to make them make good decisions in terms of the properties that they acquire, is going to make them feel secure in that decision making, the same thing will happen. That investor is going to talk to other investors and is going to bring you other business because you're just so good at laying out those financial predictions for them in a way that makes them make good decisions. And so all of what I'm trying to tell you in terms of, as a broker, evolving to the point where your knowledge is indispensable to your clients, this is about creating value. And the true secret to succeeding as a real estate broker is being able to build that value for your clients, be it with financial modeling, with understanding leasing, with understanding value adding, or if it's on the sales side, understanding the best way to market a property, the best way to, help your client unload that property and make that profit. If you're able to, with the knowledge you've acquired of your profession, really create value for your clients, that's going to be how you build your business. And so then after that, for sure, there's an aspect of marketing where every time you do something great, every time you are able to build that value, talk about it, put it on social media, broadcast about it, have your clients refer you new business. For sure, there's a marketing aspect. But before you start pulling out the bullhorn, like your marketing is basically a bullhorn. So before you start pulling out that bullhorn, the first thing you need to do is to put yourself in a position through knowledge, through market intelligence, to generate that value for your clients. And then money will be a consequence. You won't even need to put all that effort into marketing because you're going to be building unbeatable value for your clients. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, as real estate brokers kind of like come in and try to create all this churn. Don't waste all your energy on trying to get in front of as many people as possible with your substandard knowledge of the job that you're trying to do. If you make yourself so useful to your clients, the money equation is going to take care of itself. So this is a real estate investing show. I started with brokers just because I feel like it's a super clear example, just like dieting might be, right? Like if you're trying to talk about discipline or tactics, dieting is a great touch point. And I think that in the real estate industry, talking about the broker's cycle it's just a very clear touch point. If we now move this into the realm of investors. So one of the things that I often hear from investors who are, seeking, they're trying to get beyond their own personal financial capacity, and they're trying to, make deals that are attractive to joint venture partners. They're trying to do syndications, or perhaps they're trying to put together creative financing, put together a deal that's going to be profitable for them. And because a lot of times investors get really hung up on that money, get hung up on raising capital. And so again, it's a little bit putting the cart in front of the horse to be really concerned about raising that money for your deals. For sure, capital raising and lack of capital is a problem that investors face at a certain time. But if you're able to create that value for your investors, to have a unique value proposition, if you're able to do that, the money will find you. The money is a consequence of that knowledge. And so how does that work in the life of a real estate investor? Well, quite similarly to acting as a real estate broker. So if you have an incredible knowledge of financing, if you're able to put together, because it's not true that deals are just automatically profitable. You make money in the buy. You make money, or you're able to do deals because your knowledge of financing is such that you're able to secure financing for deals and put together an interesting structure that's going to make a deal profitable, or is going to make you able to acquire a property where maybe somebody else couldn't. That is industry specific knowledge that is going to make you indispensable to different investors. And I guarantee you, if you are able to know the market so well that you can find those deals. If it's through your network, if it's through just being a star negotiator on MLS, if it's through having a great broker who's going to bring you those deals before somebody else has a chance to get a kick at them, that market knowledge, because you have knowledge that no one else has, that allows you to make money in the buy, to do interesting deals, that's going to cause potential partners to find you. The same thing goes for value adding strategies. So if you're able to have a business model, now to be totally transparent, my business model is extremely good property management. I work with other people, some of whom are in construction, some of who do, different sorts of value adds. And every time somebody has that knowledge, has that know-how, has that capacity to generate value, that capacity to optimize a building or to create a deal where there was none, the investment money, the partnerships, those things will find you. And then ultimately, if let's say you're, working on your own and you're putting those deals together for your own profit, the same thing applies. Those deals will be interesting for you because you're able to see a direction of how to create value. And if that's through financing, if that's through management, if that's through renovation, if that's through, buying in a market where you have knowledge that other people don't have, what are you doing? You're ultimately creating value. And in that case, you're creating value for yourself. And the path to getting there is to acquiring that knowledge that is going to allow you to basically generate value. And so as a real estate investor, that equation is exactly the same. If you want to make money in real estate investing, be it for yourself or to attract partners who you can work with, the answer is find a way to generate value and learn those strategies that are going to allow you to do that. Now, if you're somebody who's, working kind of more for yourself and you're looking at creating that value by what you do with your property, the other part of that piece is your tenants. And your tenants, in a sense, this is a whole can of worms to say, are your tenants your clients or are your tenants your tenants? People have different approaches to that. And I don't want to, go far down that rabbit hole because it's going to detract from where I want to go, which is the value generation. But the point is that ultimately your tenants are paying you for a service, and that service is housing. And the degree to which you're able to create housing value for those people with those value add renovations, with services that they're willing to pay for, with allowing them maybe to do things that other landlords might not. And, for me, I love dogs. This is a great example. And so a lot of landlords don't like dogs. And so a lot of my buildings are dog permissive. So I allow tenants to have dogs. And that's a huge value add. Just the fact that I'm willing to make that accommodation, I have a one building that I filled up entirely with dog owners because it just happened that nobody else in that area was allowing their tenants to have dogs. And so because I created this particular value that my tenants were willing to pay extra money for, it allowed me to have a better choice of tenant pools and to command a higher level of rent because I understood what was valuable to those people and I was able to provide them with that service. And so if you're looking at generating value for your renters, which is ultimately going to end up creating value for you as an investor, take some time to investigate what sort of what is valuable to your tenants. Do they want Wi-Fi? Do they want a concierge service? Do they want parking? Or what kind of services are they willing to pay for? Or what kind of renovations are they willing to pay for? And like, this is a big one. It's another whole topic of the way people renovate their rental units. And, are you renovating for you or are you renovating for your tenants? And what I always tell my students when they're talking to me about renovation is don't renovate for you. You are probably not the target market for your rental units. So you need to understand what specific renovations are your tenants willing to pay for and how much are they willing to pay for those renovations? So to give you an example, I work in more lower end rental units, apartments units. And I will tell you right now, if you install a super high-end kitchen and a super high-end bathroom with heated floors and custom Italian appliances that are going to be a real, fixtures, toilets, faucets, and stuff that's imported from Europe that costs so much money, your tenants, that is not creating value for them. Like for me, I know that my low-income tenants, they want a place that's clean. They want basic fixtures. And because they're concerned about the amount of money that they're paying in rent, it's going to be better for them if I renovate at a lower standard because that's truly what creates value for them. And so instead of renovating like crazy and then trying to charge a rent that is out of line with my target tenant market, that's actually not generating the kind of value that the market is willing to pay for. And so if you're looking at, serving your tenants, and this is really what it comes down to, it comes down to serving the people around you in a way that is of use to them. If you set your mind on that equation, how can I become so valuable? How can I serve the people around me in an unbeatable way? The money will find you. And I suggest that if you take one thing away from this episode, that's what it needs to be. It needs to be, if I want to have financial returns, I need to think about how am I creating value? How am I making myself useful? How am I serving the people around me, the people that I need around me? How am I serving them in a way that's useful to them? And if you put your mind on that equation, I guarantee you, money, financial returns will be a consequence of making that shift. Don't make it about the fact that you want money. Make it about the fact that you just want to be as useful as you can possibly be in your business endeavors, and the money will be a consequence and it will come back to you. So just as a last sort of a footnote, this is a real estate investing podcast, so we try to keep it really within the real estate sphere. But I can't have this conversation about creating value without just pulling it through into the entrepreneurial sphere. Because for business owners, if there's any of you listening to this, people who have side hustles, I think this piece of information is too valuable for me to not share it. And so this fact of serving people and creating value. If, for example, you're a mechanic or you're someone who likes to prepare food, if you are under a car working yourself, adjusting the different nuts and bolts, changing tires, there's only so many people you can serve. Even if you're the best mechanic in the world, providing that service yourself with your own hands, sooner or later, you're going to reach the glass ceiling of your own time, and you're going to bump up against that limitation of how much value you can create for how many people. And this is the same in any business. What makes McDonald's such a great business model is not because their burgers are like so much better than every other burger that ever existed. It's their business model of delivering a consistent quality of burger to as many people as possible. And the reality is that the more people you're able to serve, the more people for whom you're able to create that incredible value proposition, the bigger your financial returns are going to be. And, a few weeks back, I interviewed a real estate broker who was very passionate about helping, people in expensive markets get onto the first rung of the property ladder. And he realized at a certain point that as a broker, in his local market in LA, there was only so many people he could help with his skills that would help them get into, make those financial decisions that would result in them being able to afford properties in that area. And so when he realized that he had this great knowledge, but he was limited in the number of people he could serve by geography, well, what did he do? He wrote a book, and then he started, an online coaching program that would allow him to share that knowledge, to be of use to a wider amount of people and to create more value for more people. And so, we were having a conversation when he was at the, kind of launch phase of this coaching business. But as you think about whatever your business is or whatever your side hustle is, think about if you have this great way of creating value. And I know you do, because we all have our own unique way of creating value. And when you spend enough time in a specific sphere, you will gain that knowledge. And then the next piece in the equation is, how am I able to structure that in a way to provide that value for a greater amount of people? And it's at that point that the ceiling on your financial returns really stops existing. Because when you're able to make a business model that delivers that value to people beyond where you're no longer the one who makes the burgers, or you're no longer the one who's under the car, you're able to share that knowledge with a wider amount of people. The financial returns of that, well, the sky is the limit. So real estate fans, I really hope that, when you listen to this episode, if you take one thing away, it's that, money, financial returns are really a question of the amount of value that you're able to generate. And that is the case in business as it is in real estate investing. Whether you're a broker that works with real estate investors, whether you're an investor who's investing for themselves or who is trying to attract partners, or whether ultimately you're concerned about serving your tenants because, in a sense, they're your clients. If you ask yourself this question, how can I generate as much value as possible for as many people as possible? I promise you the financial returns will find you, and you're going to be able to stop worrying about the money, which is ultimately just the metric of usefulness to people. Not what you think should be useful, but what the people in the outside world find is of use to them. And if you make that effort to understand, what do people want and how can I help them with it, I guarantee you money will be the consequence of that journey. So hopefully that was of value to you, and join me next week for another episode of the Real Escape Investing Podcast.